love to see your family be affected and hurt because you voted for Trump. Yeah, I voted for Trump. Absolutely.
I find it interesting that y'all created a story. You spun a narrative around what it was Donald Trump was saying and what he said he was or wasn't going to do for y'all. Because nowhere at all in Donald Trump's platform did he in any way discuss manufacturing other than through tariffs. There was no specific timeline. There was no policy plan. There was nothing. What you did was make a calculation, and a dog shit one at that. And now that you are realizing that that is the case, you are demanding space and grace from everybody who had tried to tell you that that was going to happen. And the reason you allowed yourself to spin that story to make that calculation is the same reason white people always do. It's that we rely on our whiteness to protect us, to insulate us from these systems and institutions, from the consequences of decisions like this. Because it always historically has in the past. Because these systems and institutions have been in place to protect us, to uphold the white supremacy nature of this country. But you are now finding that we have entered a new era where that is no longer the case. That it's not just being a white man. You need to be a rich white man. And what's funny is these are the types of conversations y'all hate to have, right? Call it woke and this DIA stuff, and like you guys lose your minds over it. But what's funny is your inability to have these conversations is what allows you to miss the forest for the trees. It allows you to completely miss the larger understanding of not only why we are here, but how this is going to keep going. Like what's going to happen from here? Because I can promise you, this is going to get way worse. Because this has always been about protecting the billionaire class. This has always been about protecting capital owners, the ultra wealthy top 1% of the people in this country, that hold the vast majority of the wealth in this country. Because among other things, they use white supremacy and racism as a way to not have to address our material needs. They use it as a distraction, as an excuse, as a justification for telling us why it is we can't have the things we say we need. It's the reason so many people, maybe even including yourself, are like starting to get uneasy about what it is you're seeing coming out of this administration, but haven't completely turned off from it because, hey, at least they're still rounding up black and brown people and shipping them off to concentration camps in other countries, right? It's you can't have health care because of the immigrant. You can't have housing because of black people. Yet you can't have college education, pre-K, childcare, any of the other things that we absolutely, in the richest country on the fucking planet, 100% could fucking have. You can't have any of that because of X, Y, and Z other issues. It's not that capital owners, the billionaire class, is robbing us fucking blind. No, it's trans people. No, it's gay people. No, it's black and brown people. It's the immigrant next door. And you bought what they were selling 100% because you're fucking stupid. And I don't mean stupid as in an inability to understand this. I mean stupid as in willful ignorance. What you did was decide that you could convince yourself that Donald Trump wouldn't do anything bad to you. That, yeah, he's saying all this other stuff, but it's going to be good for me. Yeah, but that's not going to happen to me. But he wouldn't do tariffs. He wouldn't do X, Y, or Z that's going to hurt me personally. And you fucking know better. Because there were plenty of people telling you all along that's the case. And all you had to do was listen. All you had to do was pick up a fucking book. All you had to do was do just a little bit of deep dive, little bit of research, little bit of broadening your horizons. But you can't even be bothered to do that. And now that this is directly impacting you, you're upset with people who are justifiably so angry with you. The thing is, you didn't come hat in hand, ready to admit you made a mistake, to offer an apology, to look for forgiveness, to ask how you can work to make this better, to help make the change, to do anything at all. No, you got on here angry and defensive that people were calling you out for helping to get us in this position. That you're experiencing the consequences of your own actions. I also live in Sarasota County, by the way, and I can tell you, people like y'all, I have absolutely no interest in engaging with. I'm so done arguing with y'all. Y'all have no clue. I can guarantee you don't know half the shit that's going on in this county, let alone the state. We've been the authoritarian testing ground for quite some time now. And the way that, I just don't have it in me. Best of luck to y'all. I'm talking to people who haven't been paying attention, where it's really starting at ground zero and educating and growing, moving people from there. Y'all, until you're ready to say yeah, I made a mistake, I fucked up, and want to do the learning and the work, I don't know what to tell you, man. Good luck to ya. I want to follow up on my last video by talking about some specific examples of what I meant. At the start of the 2008 recession, we found out just how greedy these people are. These billionaires, corporations, ultra-wealthy people, the top 1% in this country. Not only did they help to get us in this position by almost crashing the entire global economy, not a single person went to jail. They got a $450 billion bailout from the American taxpayers, never mind our 401ks and pensions, layoffs, foreclosures, right? Do you guys also remember at the same time that these companies were receiving that bailout money from our pockets? That was taxpayer money that was used. That's our fucking money. At the same time these companies are receiving these bailouts, the CEOs of said companies walked away with what were called golden parachute packages. They were walking away with literally tens of millions of dollars in severance packages. And unless you are part of that billionaire class, that capital owning class in this country, you got fucked over in that deal. We all got screwed. And one of the guys that helped to tank the global economy and was doing said screwing over was this gentleman here, Steve Schwarzman. Steve Schwarzman owns and runs Blackstone Private Equity Firm. And in 2011, Blackstone Private Equity Firm became one of the first private equity firms to start buying up foreclosures that were a direct result of the 2008 recession, the Great Recession. So the man who helped to get us in that position is now turning around and capitalizing off of getting us in that position. After buying up thousands of foreclosures and turning them into rentals, in 2017, they took the company public and made $1.8 billion. Then a few years later, in 2019, they sold all of their shares in the company and made an additional $1.7 billion. But it doesn't end there, because why would it? Right after 2019, we enter the era of COVID. And what does Blackstone do? They start the process all over again. And they start buying up single family homes and turning them into rentals. And wouldn't you know it, not only did they jack up the rents, but they hammered people with evictions as well. And just last year, they bought Tricon Residential, which now makes them the third largest portfolio owner of single family homes in the country. But while we are all being screwed over time and time again for the sake of the billionaire class in this country, I think it's important to note that white families and black families experienced the Great Recession differently. And this is where we start to get into the aspects of racism and white supremacy that I was talking about, that I know, speaking from experience, trying to have these conversations with my family members starts to get a little bit tricky. Here's a very specific example of what I mean by this. Because of the racist practices in this country, whether that be through something like redlining, discriminatory lending practices, being specifically left out of the GI Bill, a lot of black families do not have access to the same generational wealth that white families do. So they are already starting out at a disproportional disadvantage to accessing home ownership. So when they lose access to it in like a foreclosure, there is an added sting to that. It is not to say that white families did not experience job loss, foreclosure, economic hardship, difficult times. It is to say it's already a barrier for a lot of black families to be accessing generational wealth and homeownership, because while things like redlining and supposedly discriminatory lending practices are illegal, there are always workarounds. For example, how many times have we, or if you live in the South, experienced hurricanes, talk about how insurance will do anything to screw you over? It doesn't matter that there's X, Y, or Z laws, or that you paid in for this amount of time and should be, doesn't matter. They will do anything to keep you from the money that you are owed. So while these practices are technically legal or illegal, it doesn't mean that they haven't found workarounds to still implement those same practices. In addition to that, there was a higher foreclosure rate for black families than that of white families, again, because of the very discriminatory practices I am talking about. They did not have access to the same potentially home-saving relief that white families did. But these are not the only ways that these racist systems are still alive and well in this country. And this is where I want to start to kind of meld these 2 points here. Because at the height of the economic recession, we get the Tea Party movement, which at the time, they were making it sound like it was a grassroots movement of people who were angry about what they were experiencing because of the recession. When in reality, we now know it was funded by the billionaire Koch brothers. And I need you to understand that was not an accident. It was not simply about putting the GOP in charge during the midterms. It was not simply about a backlash to the ACA, to a chance at health care. that was very specifically a panic by the billionaire class of, hang on a minute. We've got a hell of a lot of angry people who are getting awful close to understanding class consciousness with the black man in the White House. We can't have this going on. So we need to crank up the racism and white supremacy dial in this country. Hey guys, it's not us. It's the billionaires. It wasn't our fault. You don't understand. You don't want to blame us. It's these black people over here. It's these immigrants. It's not us. These are the people you need to be blaming. Because I don't think people remember how the lead up to the ACA, the Obama healthcare vote, went. The Tea Party protesters that were at DC were screaming racial and homophobic epithets at members of Congress. They even spit on members of Congress. I don't think people remember the seething rage that was there. And that was not by accident. And it's not to say we can't have policy discussions and disagreements around something like healthcare, but I want you to think about now how many people rely on Obamacare, on the ACA, right? Trump tried to get rid of it in his first term and people lost their minds because it is actually the little access to healthcare that we get. It's why you're finding now universal healthcare is so popular because we're it's not enough. We should be able to have easier and better access to healthcare. It's why a very particular event by a certain Italian man in New York had a lot of people going, yeah, that's bad, but I get it, right? I think about it now, years and years later, and the way that we process and understand it. And that the same people at the time that were talking about why it was we couldn't have healthcare and this is socialism and this is going to destroy the country are now the exact same people telling you again, well, we can't have healthcare, universal healthcare. That's socialism. That would crash the economy. You just don't understand. And we absolutely understand. We understand that universal healthcare would save this country billions of dollars and thousands of lives every year, but it would cost the ultra-wealthy billionaire class a shit ton of money. It costs them the profits that come out of our pockets. But again, it is understanding that we all interact and experience the healthcare system in this country differently. For example, black women, it doesn't matter how much money they have, their educational background, if they're famous or not, they experience medical racism. Black pregnant women die at 3 times the rate white pregnant women do in this country. It is the reason that Beyonce and Serena Williams, regardless, again, of education, income, fame, they almost died as a result of their pregnancy. That dynamic is still there. And in wrapping this up, I want to leave you with this. At the same time, in 2010, where we're seeing the rise of the Tea Party movement, Barack Obama is considering raising taxes on billionaires. Billionaires like Steve Schwarzman. And at the time, when considering this, Steve Schwarzman said this of the move, that raising taxes on billionaires like him was akin to this. I need you to understand that, this is where we move into this last election, which is that the billionaire class in this country, the ultra-wealthy top 1%, these corporations, they will do absolutely anything to maintain the power and wealth that they have in this country. And that the status quo in this country has historically been, when they need to, they will hit that racism, supercharged white supremacy button. What you missed was the additional dynamic in this election, which is that being a millionaire or a multimillionaire is not enough. And in fact, some of these richer billionaire people are finding shit isn't cute because there was the added layer of fascism. It was your mistaking that I can overlook all of this other fascism and authoritarianism and dangerous things he is saying because it'll benefit me economically. Not understanding those two things can't happen. They're in fact mutually exclusive. And that unless you are part of the billionaire class, there is no insulating you from this. Mask is off now and we're in it. There is no going back. The only way out is through. And the question becomes how long it's going to be and how painful it's going to be. Which is why you are finding a lot of what I will call soft Trump voters are finding. People don't have a lot of sympathy for you. Especially if you come on the internet and get very defensive in that vote when people are like, hey man, you helped to get us here. And don't seem to be interested in helping us get out of it much quicker. So until you are ready to admit you made a mistake, that you're willing to overlook all of this other stuff he was saying because you didn't think it was going to impact you, that you were going to gain financially from this, but none of this other stuff was going to impact you, and that you are ready to get your hands dirty, to start doing the work, to help us out, I don't want to hear it. We don't want to hear it. Best of luck to you.
I love this for you. I love this. Nice. I love this for you. I love to see you fail. I love to see your family be affected and hurt because you voted for Trump. Yeah, I voted for Trump. Absolutely. Did I know he was going to increase the tariffs? Yes, I did. However, I thought that the infrastructure would be set up prior for small business to come back to America and manufacture in America. So to wish ill on someone and to love the fact that they're suffering, to love the fact that their family is being negatively affected because I didn't vote the same way that you did is fucked up. It really is. It shouldn't matter. Anyone that enters my life, I'm going to judge you of who you are, how you are as a human being. Are you kind? Are you polite? Are you sincere? That's how I judge you, not who you voted for. I've got far left-leaning friends. I got far right-leaning friends. It doesn't matter to me. I like you based on who you are. But to see someone hurt and their business fail and their family be affected because they didn't vote the way you did, it's fucked up. I'm sorry, a lot of you are fucked up. I'm sorry. We should all care about each other regardless of who we voted for. I'm sorry. I hope you guys can be better people. Good luck to you guys.